The Way to Wealth was first published in 1758 as a preface to Benjamin Franklin's Poor Richard's Almanac. In this preface, Franklin summed up all of his previously published thoughts about how to achieve success in business. For this purpose, Franklin created Father Abraham, who liberally quotes from Poor Richard to a crowd waiting for an auction to begin. The essay has become one of the most important and enduring business books ever published. It has been printed and reprinted almost 400 times and has been translated into almost every language. We are delighted to present it here, still as true today as when it was first printed. And now, The Way to Wealth is comprised of just 10 lessons. Each lesson is divided into sub-lessons or teachings. Some lessons have more than others, some less. The first lesson in this home study course of this self-help book is called Towards and Away. This is because to achieve something or even be a certain way, you must move towards it. But you must also move away from something at the same time. Fat to lean, poor to rich, distracted to focus, from waiting to beginning. Courteous reader or viewer or listener, I have heard that nothing gives an author so great pleasure as to find his works respectfully quoted by others. Judge then how much I must have been gratified by an incident I am going to relate to you. I stopped my horse lately where a great number of people were collected at an auction of merchants' goods. The hour of the sale not being come, they were conversing on the badness of the times, and one of the company called to a plain, clean old man with white locks, "Pray, Father Abraham, what think of you of the times? Will not those heavy taxes quite ruin the country? How shall we ever be able to pay them? What would you advise us to do?" Father Abraham stood up and replied, "If you would have my advice, I will give it to you in short, for a word to the wise is enough, as Poor Richard says." There was a person. I'll come a little closer so you can see me better. There was a person on a boat, and the sea had gotten rough. The captain advised to put on a life preserver. The person thought better and was washed overboard and drowned. Was the choice so obvious? The fact is, the Coast Guard cites that many drowned people would be saved if they had only been wearing a life preserver when they should have. I wonder when it became obvious to those poor souls. Now, you may say they were stupid, and they surely may have been, but how many times has someone given you advice that you did not take, and then, upon retrospection, realized that if you had taken it, you would have been better off? Of course, you must be objective in this kind of thinking, lest you be right all over again. Knowledge is only information, and even if it is accurate, it could be the wrong information for a purpose. Similarly, there are different kinds of intelligence where a person excels in one area but useless in another. That all aside, this axiom has one all-important word and description: the word wise. And what is this wisdom? It's simply an ability to see things from other perspectives. If you cannot see things this way, I'm sorry, friend, but you have no wisdom. And if you did so, no more than simple advice is sufficient. So, when the good word is offered to two persons, and all things being equal, one takes the advice and the other declines. It's only because one is wise and the other is not. A missed opportunity and continued deficiency for the latter. Indeed, if you lack wisdom, what you receive from this course will be all the lesser. 1. Your exercise to learn this teaching is to write at least 5 times you were given advice and not taken it and suffered for it, or at least did not benefit like you would have if you had taken the advice. 2. Then write 5 more times you were given advice and this time took it and indeed benefited. 3. If you think you could use more wisdom, how can you develop it? Write a list. Okay, the sun is a little glaring today. I'll step back a little bit, my old back. They joined in desiring him to speak his mind, and gathering round him, he proceeded as follows. Friends, say he, the taxes are indeed very heavy, and if those laid on the government were the only ones we had to pay, we might more easily discharge them. But we have many others, and much more grievous to some of us. We are taxed twice as much by our idleness, 3 times as much by our pride, and 4 times as much by our folly. And from those taxes the commissioners cannot ease or deliver us by allowing an abatement. Allow me to elaborate on this all-important philosophy. Now, the government taketh an ever-increasing amount, and that number vary in place and person. It taxeth this and that. Indeed, the current rate of 8% on every good you buy is forever biting. But if we could round off this number, whether it be less or more, to a nice, easy figure to work with, let us say the government take it 50% of all you earn in total, when you count everything. And indeed, everything counts in one way or another. And now, let us say that the government take it half. And we need an annual income to work with. Again, a nice, easy, rounded number, say $50,000. Quite a respectable amount, no doubt. Let us query. We are taxed twice as much by our idleness. This is no mere chastisement, but a formula to be learned. Simply that lack of action on a consistent basis costs double the bill of the government. Your inertia has not cost you some abstract possibility, but has a real dollar amount. So if an income of $50,000 is taxed in total 50%, that leaves $25,000 for the earner. Still not an untidy sum, but the bill of indolence must be paid as well. And it's twice the government rate, so 100%. In this case, the cost of trifling is $50,000. It's as if the 50% the government has left you has been taken away, or more precisely, given away. But it's worse, because it's double. So idleness in this situation leaves our subject in the hole negative $25,000. Not doing so well after all. If you behaved instead with torpidity, but acted daily with vigor as a principle of general behavior, this does not apply. Your exercise to learn this teaching is to write 10 different ways you've been idle. 3 times as much by our pride. So we have established the real cost of dawdling. But what of this pride? We are not talking of self-respect, which is a vital thing. We mean the inordinate opinion of one's own superiority. It seems to be much more common than the former these days. It's always easily identified. If a person does not believe they could or should change for the better, there you have the pride in question. A very expensive notion it is. And one must be careful. Self-delusion is a tricky thing. There is another facet to this pride. Another way to detect if one has this cancerous indulgence is taking credit for others' achievements. Now, let us deduce the actual price, continuing with the same example of a person who earned $50,000 annually. The government will take half, and pride demands 3 times as much, so 150%. Pride's bill is $75,000. So if our person is a hustler but is prideful, he's still in the red $50,000. Oh, the cost of pride. Most prideful people are so full of themselves they might not see this unless their clone appeared to convince them otherwise. Who else might teach such an unteachable person regarding their own improvement? Nonetheless, their loss continues whether they can discern it or not. Your exercise to learn this teaching is to write 10 different ways you've been prideful. And finally, of course, folly. 4 times as much by our folly. Finally, we get to the most expensive of flaws. Now, folly does not necessarily mean a person lacks smarts. It means, more than anything, in the way to wealth, that one does not learn. A person need not be a Copernicus. One need only learn from past mistakes to get anything they desire. Indeed, if someone does not achieve their goals, it is simply because they have not learned or persisted. No matter what you value in life, if you do not learn from your previous mistakes, your potential is so circumscribed that, dare I say, don't bother. You might as well resign yourself to being a peasant. Now, let's analyze the real charge of folly. Again, our earner has $25,000 left after the government has taken its 50% share. Injudiciousness has a very steep toll, 4 times the government rate, so 200%. If a person is virtuous, proactive, and humble in all areas, yet still foolish, his debt is $100,000. This leaves him negative $75,000 as a way of being in terms of money. So we find the high cost of these taxing errors. Idleness is double, pride is triple, folly is quadruple. Yet they do not exist in vacuums. They are compounded. For the earner of $50,000 annually is at a total government tax rate of 50%. The interest is quite high, 450%. The pound of flesh for these mistakes of being is something much more than that, a total of negative $150,000. So instead of making $50,000 and keeping $25,000, what else is going on? When a person behaves with idleness, pride, and folly for lack of the principles that avoid them, a high taxing government is the least of his or her problems. Your hearken. Oh, yes, Lord, I'm doing my best. Yes, I'm trying. I lost count. We're at 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Yes. Oh, I think we're at 7. Thank you, Lord. When a person behaves with idleness, pride, and folly for the lack of principles that avoid them, a high taxing government is the least of his or her problems. Your exercise to learn this teaching is to write 10 different ways you've acted with folly. However, let us hearken to good advice, and something may be done for us. God helps them that helps themselves. Now, One need not be religious or even spiritual to understand and even implement this. The point is that no amount of prayer, intention, wishing, hoping, mental planning, meditating, or any non-action whatsoever will ever be enough to get you what you really want. The only thing that will ever move you towards your goals is visible action. If you're of the religious sort, that is fine, and so is your prayer, but make no mistake, God smiles on action. And if it's God's love you're looking for, lift thy finger. If you are atheist, heaven forbid, that also is fine, for the universe has an intelligence that is most reliable. It matters not what your spiritual beliefs are, for there is a prime law that we are all beholden to, and that is cause and effect. You may sweet talk your fellows, but this law cares not. It responds best to action, and the proof is always in the pudding. Your exercise to learn this teaching is to write 5 times you wanted something, but did not act to get it, and therefore never got it. Then write 5 more times you wanted something, but this time you did act, and you did get it.